My wife's friend told me in a bar that she was cheating on me, and when I saw that her lover put something in her cup, I called the police. I want to share with you a story about a challenging time I've been going through. It all started one Wednesday evening as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a glass of whiskey. I opted for just a couple of drinks since I didn't want to get too tipsy, given the circumstances. I knew my wife was almost ready when the music upstairs finally came to a stop. My wife's girls' nights out usually happen on Wednesdays, so I often find myself working late. While she enjoyed her time out with friends, my parents would look after our son, Mike. On Thursdays, I'd stay late at work to wrap up everything, so I could head home early to spend time with my family. Everything seemed well planned. My parents enjoyed spoiling their grandson, and my wife appreciated her occasional night out. As I sat there, watching the door, I saw a familiar face walk into the bar. It reminded me of how often I stopped by this place, or how I might take my favorite sandwich to go. I got up and waved as I saw her scanning the room. When she spotted me, she came right over. Her name is Clara, a friend of my wife's who's been a part of our lives for years. Even though she's married, I've always found her charming. Clara has this way of easing the tension without ever seeming weak. I couldn't help but notice how lovely she looked with her fair skin and light blonde hair. She might not have been what you'd call traditionally beautiful, but her kind face and confident demeanor more than made up for it. Her husband Dan considered her a blessing, and I could understand why. She sat across from me and thanked me for meeting her. Her words were sincere. "I know how busy you are, Tom. I really appreciate you taking the time," she said, looking me straight in the eyes. I replied, "No problem, Clara," though it felt a bit odd meeting her here without Julie. Normally, I preferred to have dinner with my wife, but since this is about Julie, I'm listening. Are you planning a surprise for her birthday next month? Clara's face turned serious as we talked about Julie's birthday. Concerned, I reached out and asked, "What's wrong?" Clara hesitated before speaking. "I know you and Julie love each other deeply. I've seen it myself. That's why I'm here. It might strain our friendship, but if it helps save your marriage, I'm willing to do it. There's no easy way to say this, but Julie has been seeing someone for the past 5 months." I was stunned. I told Clara, "This is so ridiculous. It must be a joke. I'm really sorry, Tom, but it's not a joke. About 4 months ago, after you started that big project, Julie seemed to get really down. She's been irritable at work, and when we go out, she seems more distant than usual. After a few drinks, she opened up about missing you and feeling neglected. She also mentioned feeling like you two had become just another middle-aged couple going through the motions." The waiter came over to take Clara's order. She chose an iced tea and a garden salad. The thought of my wife hiding something from me raced through my mind. After 12 years of marriage, I thought we were honest with each other, even when we disagreed. "Did she sleep with him?" I whispered to Clara, anxious to know. "No, as far as I know. Julie's always been social, so this behavior surprised me," Clara explained. "Tom, you need to understand something. Every woman I've talked to says the same thing. I suppose you both often complain about being overwhelmed by daily life or something like that," Clara continued. "When Julie brought it up, we all sympathized with her and told her she's a beautiful woman and that you should pay more attention to her. Unfortunately, my sister was there that night." "What does your sister have to do with this?" I asked, barely containing my anger. Clara explained that her sister, Lisa, is somewhat known for being promiscuous, a fact that caught the waiter's attention as he refilled her tea. Clara sipped her drink and went on, "My parents had a terrible marriage. Both were unfaithful, and it became a cycle of revenge. When I was 20, I asked them why they stayed together, and they acted like I was from another planet. They said they loved each other, and that's all that mattered. This affected my sister and me differently. I realized cheating ruins relationships, but my sister thought it was okay as long as you loved each other. I love her, but she's got it all wrong. Anyway, back to the point. My sister suggested that if Julie wasn't finding romance at home, she should look elsewhere. I told her she was wrong, but then Isabel and Sophia started talking about finding better partners and keeping it secret. I think for them, it was just a theoretical discussion since they're not married. Julie said she'd never cheat on you, but I think my sister's words planted doubts in her mind." "Why do you think that?" I asked, now uncertain about Julie's commitment. The more I learned, the harder it became to listen. But I've always believed that knowledge is power. Then Clara dropped the bombshell. "The following week, Jake Morrison and his team joined us at the Blue Horizon bar. Julie claims she didn't invite him, but mentioned our group dance plans. It's usually fun when more people join in, but not with Jake around. Tell me about this guy, Jake, I said, trying to sound composed. Seeing my controlled tone, Clara gave a slight smile and said, Jake Morrison is known for chasing women. He's relentless, going after every woman who shows the slightest interest, married or not. He just loves the thrill of the chase. Your wife caught his eye right away, but he didn't pursue her until that night. Now he's after her, and instead of standing up to him, she's avoiding him. Everyone knows that if Jake faces another harassment charge, hell be fired. She could shut him down, but she hasn't. They've been seen talking in the cafeteria a lot over the past few months. I tried to talk to her about it, but she got defensive, insisting they're just friends, and that Jake listens to her and understands her problems. I asked her how she'd behave if you were there, and she blushed and admitted she wouldn't act the same. Then she got upset and said something about you not paying enough attention to her. So I backed off but kept an eye on her. Work seemed to calm down, and I thought everything was back to normal until that incident 4 weeks ago. As Clara's order arrived, she began eating while I sipped my whiskey, lost in thought. How could Julie possibly think her flirting with another man wouldn't upset me? I wasn't overly jealous. I trusted my wife completely. I wondered if I'd been too absorbed in my work to notice her. Maybe I've been working too hard, but the rewards will be worth it when the project is done. Something about the event from 4 weeks ago kept gnawing at me. Did I really want to know? As I tried to process Clara's revelations, we ate in silence for the next 10 minutes. Without a doubt, I was furious. Even if Julia's reasons for getting so close to another man were flimsy, I could almost see where she was coming from. I wondered if things might have been different if I'd paid more attention. She was essentially deceiving me by keeping me in the dark about her flirtations. It was a half-truth, but I could overlook her actions for now and focus on fixing things. I would talk to her and express my concerns. We could move forward if she admitted her feelings and agreed to distance herself from Jake. Unless something major happened in the last 4 weeks, I hadn't seen any long-term effects. Tell me what happened 4 weeks ago. How bad was it? I asked. I needed this information to steady my thoughts. I thought I could handle it. Clara looked at me with sympathy. This is where it gets ugly, Tom. 4 weeks ago, we were back at the Blue Horizon bar for some dancing. Jake and his friends showed up, and we all danced together, having a good time. Julie had been drinking more than usual, with Jake buying her drinks all night, which got her pretty drunk. I took her to the restroom and realized she was even more intoxicated than I thought. When we came out, she was holding her underwear in her hand, saying she wanted to feel liberated. She was nearly plastered. I chalked it up to the alcohol and helped her back to our table. I tried to persuade Isabel and Sophia to help me take Julie to my house so she wouldn't go home completely wasted, but then I saw Julie and Jake getting too close, bumping into each other and practically simulating sex on the dance floor. After the group dancing ended, the rest of the night was a blur. I saw Julie put her underwear in Jake's pocket at the end of a song. Everyone in the bar saw it too, and there were whistles all around as Jake grinned and kissed her deeply. One of his friends recorded the whole thing on his phone. I hoped Julie would push him away, but she didn't. When she saw my reaction, she apologized, saying she was sorry. I had to leave because my jaw dropped. I stood up and walked away, locking myself in the restroom, my mind racing. I splashed water on my face, trying to calm down. I remembered the night Julie came home at 3:30 in the morning, after Clara had called to say she'd be staying with her, due to excessive drinking. Clara and the girls had saved Julie from getting a DUI on several occasions, and I was grateful for that. As I sensed a shift in her behavior, memories of the intense nights we spent together came flooding back. I felt betrayed by her excitement for another man and was ready for a confrontation when I returned home. But I refocused my anger on the present. Damn, I muttered under my breath. I went back to the table to collect myself and asked, what if she was thinking about him while we were together? She had me beat. I asked Clara for clarification, my meal untouched, reading her empathetic expression. To be honest, Tom, that's pretty much it, she said. The recent girls' nights were at Isabel's house with wine and a lingerie show. At work, Julie seems distant with Jake, though he keeps pursuing her. I thought it was over, but just yesterday I saw them talking. They stopped when I approached, so I'm not sure what's going on. I felt you needed to know since she no longer listens to her friends, she said. I quickly grabbed the check and fumbled for my card. I'd like to see them interact and perhaps intimidate him right off the bat, I said. Julie mentioned you girls are heading to the Blue Horizon this week. I'll be there to keep an eye on things. I paused, noticing Clara's uneasy expression. What did I say wrong? Tom, Isabel has a doctor's appointment early Thursday morning, and Sophia is visiting her brother in Florida. If Julie goes out on Wednesday, it won't be with us, she said. She softly added, I'm so sorry, dear, as she reached across the table to hold my hand. I know it's not easy to ask how you're holding up, but if you ever need to talk, here's my home phone number. You can reach out to Dan or me anytime. Her husband was a marriage counselor, so he could be a helpful ally. Thanks for letting me know, Clara. I understand this must be hard for you, but I really believe you're a good person and a true friend. I don't know what the future holds, but I know what's happening now, and I'll do what I can. Thank you again, I said, getting up from the table, paying with my card and leaving. The project I was working on reached a new milestone today. We cut setup time by 2 months and ensured at least a week's supply despite the shipping challenges by securing components from a startup firm in New Jersey. This proposal might be completed ahead of schedule, saving the military millions of dollars, with just a few more calls to make. As expected, the financial reward would be substantial, and the project's recognition would significantly boost my profile. Instead of feeling content, I dreaded going home and facing the issues I knew I had to address. I felt the need to investigate on my own. I couldn't access her work email, but I doubted they'd risk using it due to HR scrutiny. When I checked her personal email, I didn't find anything suspicious. To verify whether she had another account, I'd need access to our home computer. Though I'm not tech-savvy, I had a simpler plan in mind for monitoring things. It didn't involve complex tech like security cameras or voice-activated recorders. I needed to determine whether I should try to save our marriage or end it, so I gathered as much information as possible. After picking Mike up from my parents' house, Julie asked if I could bring home some Chinese food. After 12 years of marriage, I should know she loves sweet and sour chicken, she reminded me when I asked what she wanted. I couldn't help but be a bit sarcastic, saying I just wanted to make sure our arrangement still suited her. She then requested an extra spring roll, and my phone rang immediately. Though I usually looked forward to returning home early to spend quality time with my family, today was different. I hadn't come home this early on a Thursday since the project began, I noted as I glanced at the clock. Even though I could see how Julie might feel neglected, it didn't justify what she did. As I entered the house, I saw Julie grabbing a bottle of wine. I paused, appreciating her figure. She looked stunning at the age of 39, standing at 56 with curves that were hard to ignore, even in loose sweatpants. She still had that spark. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and when she turned to face me, she gave me a smile that reminded me how lucky I was. Then reality hit me. I'm so glad you're home, honey. Was work good? Pretty good, I said as she kissed me on the lips. Our progress on some materials has been remarkable, and we might finish the project a month early, darling. Because of this project, I know I've spent a lot of time away from home. The details are classified, but please know that you and Mike are my top priority. I'll do everything it takes to keep us safe, I said, looking deeply into her eyes as I made this promise. I wondered if I saw a flicker of guilt or if it was all in my head. I understand, honey. This is just a rough patch, and we both love you. She seemed on the verge of tears, but I couldn't tell if she was genuine or putting on a show. Still, I was glad she acknowledged it. So tell me, how will the project's early completion benefit you, she asked, pouring herself a glass of wine. Well, for starters, it means a significant bonus. Until the project is approved, we won't know the exact amount, but it's a big deal. Also, this success might lead to more business and government contracts, which could open doors for me as a project manager. The higher-ups are aware, so I might be able to negotiate better benefits. I attempted to eat my sweet and sour pork with chopsticks before switching to a fork. If all goes well, it should be quite rewarding, I said, glancing at her. I don't recall you mentioning that, darling, she said as I chewed. I vaguely remember you talking about a promising but undisclosed big deal, and it seems like we haven't had much of a conversation since then, she added, her expression shifting from somber to more upbeat. But it sounds like my husband will be home more often soon, she said with a brighter tone. So, what bar are you ladies going to tomorrow night? I asked, casting a quick look her way. Time to go fishing. Would it be okay if I dropped by after work to see how you're doing on my way home? I inquired casually, mentioning our plans to hit the blue horizon for some dancing. She looked at her chicken and replied, "Oh, actually, we think we'll be done before you finish work." That made my heart sink. Mike finished his spring roll and then asked for a bedtime story. I washed my plate and carried him into the living room after I lifted him up. I read him story after story for the next hour until he fell asleep. I noticed Julia snoring on the couch, a book resting on her lap. So I picked up Mike, carried him upstairs to his room, and tucked him in. Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought about the days ahead. I wanted Mike to remember these peaceful evenings with his parents instead of the tough times that were coming. I wiped them away and returned downstairs, where Julia was still asleep. I gave her a gentle kiss and covered her with a blanket. Then I went looking for her phone, which I found plugged into the charger on the nightstand in our bedroom. After unlocking it, I started scrolling through her text messages and quickly found what I was looking for. By going back 5 months, I could see the exchanges. "Hey, beautiful. It was fun watching you and the girls dance last night." She replied, "Likewise, Tom works late on Wednesdays, and the in-laws watch Mike." Reading on, the words seemed to cut deeper and deeper into my heart. "Vicky gave me a talking to today about our lunch breaks," she texted. She wanted to know if Tom would approve of our behavior, which made me think we might be sending the wrong signals. I was annoyed, but she picked up on everything. "Exactly. I don't want any misunderstandings," he replied. "On top of that, I shouldn't be venting to another man. Maybe I should try talking to Tom." He said, "I get that, but if you can't get his attention, you'll know where I am. I'll even buy you dinner if we have to, just to stay friends." I don't think Julie ever tried to have a serious conversation with me. Maybe it was when I was so busy gathering project materials. I could have missed something. Up until now, the messages had seemed harmless, but now it was clear this guy was trying to get under my skin. How could Julie have been so blind? As I scrolled down the page, I saw more disturbing messages. "You need to return them today," she said. "You know exactly what I mean. My friends are so upset with me right now, and I totally get why. If Tom finds out I acted like a showgirl, he might leave me. So, you don't want me to show him the video?" he replied. "That video?" she asked. "Sam was there, and he recorded a video on his phone. No one at work can see this." "All right, I can't lose Tom, not after last night," she replied. "I'll make sure he deletes it, but you owe me." "What happened last night?" he asked. "It's none of your business," she replied. "Did he get mad because you came home late and drunk? That's funny." "Definitely not," she said. "So you made up for your dirty dancing with me by pleasing your husband. Let's just say something happened that turned everything upside down and leave it at that." "He should thank me," he said. "You're disgusting. Last night was one for the books, thanks to Tom. Now please return my underwear and delete that video." "You're lucky to have her," he said, his tone implying something more. "Tom deserves more than that. I thought he was looking out for you. I don't need anyone looking out for me. I'm sure he's a good guy. But you're often out on your own. Sorry, of course. Please act like the friend you say you are and take care of what I've asked." "Thank you. I'll help you out and then you can buy me dinner," he replied. "As long as that video stays hidden, I'll meet your every demand." "I heard the girls' night is canceled," he said last Wednesday, marking the latest development. "Why don't we have dinner together?" "Come on, that was a bad idea." "I'm sorry," she replied. "I get it. The girls had plans one night and your husband will be at work. We can keep the conversation going like we did at the cafe." "No, I'd rather you meet me at JJ's at the Grand Hotel. You owe me that much." "All right, I'll meet you at the Blue Horizon at 8. They serve great cocktails, but I'd rather not deal with a bunch of drunks. If we drink too much, I'll book a room." "Fine, but it's just dinner with some friends, and I appreciate you keeping the video under wraps. Besides, word has already spread at work. Don't worry about it. Just wait for someone else to do something controversial, and you'll be fine." I saw Sam delete the video. It dawned on me then that this might be the final straw that would break our marriage. How often had I seen my wife go out on dates with other men in hotel bars? After reading through the messages, I unplugged her phone, undressed, and went to bed alone. It took me a while to fall asleep. On Wednesday, she wore her favorite little black dress, the one we'd always pick for a night out, and she looked amazing. As she paused at the bottom of the stairs, she saw me sitting at the table. "I didn't expect you to come home so early today, baby," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "We need to talk, Julie," I said. my tone emotionless. I think we're about to have the most important conversation of our lives. I know there won't be a girls' night out tonight. Please have a seat. She sat down, nervously reaching for my hand, but I pulled it away. Tom, please let me explain, she pleaded, but I slammed my fist on the table and interrupted. Listen to me, Julie. I know you've been seeing Jake Morrison behind my back. Tears welled up in her eyes as she recoiled. But you can't talk until I've said my piece. I know you kissed that creep at lunch, I said while staring at her coldly. I know you and he danced at the Blue Horizon, and I know that after some suggestive moves, you took off your underwear and handed it to him. I can tell you right now that your excitement about him was the only reason you were so into me 4 weeks ago. And I know your boyfriend has already reserved a table at the hotel restaurant, so you'll be meeting him there tonight. I just don't know if you've slept with him yet, and if you haven't, I don't see what could possibly stop you. Julie, you lied to me about Jake by omission, I said after a pause to control my anger. You deceived me about your risque dancing moves and your plans to hang out with the girls. I'm completely worn out and my trust in you is shattered. The idea of trying to save this marriage is still foreign to me. Based on your behavior, it seems like you've lost interest. So, I'm giving you 3 choices. 1, you walk out that door and go see your sleazy boyfriend. That's the first option, I said, raising my index finger. This decision will end our marriage whether or not you sleep with him tonight. Second option, we stay here all night, and you try to convince me to salvage our marriage. There's no way I'll want to, but maybe you can persuade me since our love was once real, and we're thinking about starting a family. I raised my second finger. But you'll have an extremely hard time convincing me because I'm not likely to believe anything you say. Third option, you take me along tonight to confront your lover in front of me. I pointed to my third finger and said, I can tell you there's a 30% chance I'll be willing to try. You tell him never to contact you again, and then you give us 20 minutes to talk to him privately, away from prying ears. This option will increase my willingness to work with you and earn you the utmost respect. You have my word that I will give this relationship my all if you refuse to have any intimate relations with him. Julie stared at me with a mixture of terror and regret, as if she were going to pass out. If you did, this would be our last chance to save our marriage. Julie, you have 3 choices, A, B, or C. What do you think? Tom, I'm so sorry for everything. The question lingered in her mind for what seemed like an eternity as she struggled to maintain her composure. I really must speak with you. Who will lead the conversation if we go meet him? A few points were awarded to her for agreeing to face him head-on, but she was still in serious trouble. I grabbed the keys and led her to the car, as her response took me by surprise. I expected her to sit and try to explain her behavior. As I pulled onto the road, she gazed at me, her voice barely audible. I really messed everything up for us, didn't I? I opened the door for her out of habit, and she nearly broke down in tears. You did, Julie, I said, keeping my focus on the road ahead. How can I fix this? I paused to gather my thoughts before answering. First and foremost, complete honesty from now on. Her voice trembled as she asked, Do you think that's all it takes? Honesty is just the beginning, I said. You need to prove to me that you're committed to making this work. I shouldn't have to spell this out, but I will. Never again should you lie or withhold anything that could affect our relationship. I'm not the one who betrayed our trust. You need to figure out how to rebuild it. And by the way, he's dead to you. If you stay with me, you will avoid him at work. Don't ask him about his day. The moment he enters the bar, your night is over. Call me right away if you're stuck. No conversation, no gifts, no drinks. Finally, when we get home tonight, you will tell me everything. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. I will admit that the project consumed me. If you have any resentment toward me, let me know. Finally, schedule an appointment for marriage counseling. You can choose the counselor at your discretion. She looked down even more pale as her phone rang. It's him, wondering where I am. Without hesitating, she handed me the phone, and I browsed through her texts, finding a few from earlier in the day. Him. Listen, I reserved a suite with a hot tub. Maybe after dinner we can relax a bit. Her. You know you won't get me drunk enough to enjoy a hot bath with you, so bring your swimsuit. Him. We'll see. I'm not bringing the swimsuit. What happens when you drink is obvious to you. Maybe we won't need the swimsuit, he replied. And then just now he said, Where are you? I poured myself a glass of wine while I waited for you. Her, I'm running a little late. I'll tell you all about my surprise when I get there. Him. Oh, you brought your swimsuit. Cool. I handed the phone back to her, and after reading the texts, she shook her head in disappointment. Do you realize that these messages do nothing to help your case? It seems like you were planning to meet him tonight, based on your communications from just today. If I keep scrolling, will it get worse? Do you think your text messages today constitute inappropriate flirting? Feelings like these interactions have shattered my trust in you are beyond your comprehension. Tom, I swear I only planned to have dinner with you tonight. I heard her crying as she sat beside me. I couldn't help but scoff at the idea that I had slept with him. Just like a few weeks ago, were you going to give him your underwear once you took them off? Julie, we're almost there. I didn't think she could get any paler, but she did. Before you talk to Jake, you should probably fix your makeup and plan your words. As she began to collect herself, she said more calmly, Tom, I understand why you think Jake was playing with me, but please don't drink wine. She then took a napkin out of the glove box and lowered the visor. After hearing you, I get it. How on earth did I miss this, Tom? I'm not a naive little girl, and I know my recent actions don't reflect that. I've avoided more charming and sophisticated men than Jake. How then did he decide that I was the one to target? Julie, that's why I'm having a hard time believing you right now. As a beautiful and intelligent woman, you should be able to see through this nonsense. That's why I'm curious, were you voluntarily involved? Just see myself lying to you and telling a woman I met at a bar that we were going out to dinner tonight. Okay, I messed up, and now I have to figure out how to fix it. I understand why you're so angry and hurt, she replied, her voice gaining strength as her color returned. Thank you for giving me a chance. As she came in for a kiss, I quickly turned my head, letting her peck me on the cheek instead. I'm still not over this. We used to show a lot of affection, maybe we can get back to that. What should I tell him, she asked me with an almost surprised expression. Not by a long shot. As we entered the restaurant's parking lot, she inquired. I pulled over, parked, and let my anger simmer. Julie, what am I asking you to tell him? Our relationship is on shaky ground because of what you did with that jerk. You two have shaken the foundation of our marriage. You could end up spending Thanksgiving with our son, and I might end up spending Christmas with him. As we approached the hotel restaurant, she paused and reached for my hand. I want this to be clear, so tell him whatever you want. After sitting silently for a while, she sighed and opened the car door. I didn't resist, but I also didn't want her touch. As we walked inside, a red-haired hostess asked if we were a couple. Just as I was about to answer, Julie cut in, saying that we were meeting someone else. The hostess nodded and told us to look around. I had no idea who we were looking for, so I had to trust Julie to guide us. She nudged me and pointed to the back of the restaurant where a man sat by the hotel door completely absorbed in his phone. With determined steps, Julie made her way to the table, where she abruptly stopped short of taking a seat. As soon as he spotted me standing behind her, the man's wide grin abruptly faded as he glanced up and saw her. Jake, this is my husband, Tom Rogers. His worries about our relationship are valid, and after our conversation, I feel the same way. I have created an opportunity for him to question my faithfulness, which is a first in our marriage. My connection with you has broken trust, but I will do my best to make it right. I refuse to interact with you going forward. Don't bother calling, texting, or contacting me in any other way. This has gotten out of hand, and I'm taking full responsibility for it. Even though my spouse is aware of what I did at the Blue Horizon, I am determined to make amends with him. Just wanted to give HR a heads up about what's going on and make it clear that they are not welcome to try to strike up a conversation with me about anything other than work tomorrow. As she turned to go, she planted a kiss on my cheek and said, I'm truly sorry. As she made her way to the bar, a range of emotions washed over me, including fury and relief. Sitting across from Jake, I took stock of his features: dark hair, slim build, and impeccable taste in clothing. I'm not great at judging men, but I thought he was attractive. From where I was sitting, I couldn't tell his height, but he was probably about my height. His fixation on the glass of wine in front of him only served to confirm my suspicions. Now was the moment to keep my cool and confront this issue head-on. So, you thought it would be surprising to see her in a bikini. Are you really believing that she told you everything? I said with a hint of a grin. He replied with a mischievous grin. I felt a surge of power as soon as he stood before me. Indeed, sure. Julie and I have been friends for 15 years. and we've been married for 12. I maintained my smile as the server came over to take my drink order. I wanted a double bourbon with ice, and Jake said, "She certainly knows how to please a man." He glanced at the glass of wine he had ordered for her, but he couldn't help but grin. "Yes, that's true." I grinned broadly in response. "But I'm not convinced you're speaking from personal experience. Do you require visual aids?" "You don't have photographs," he quipped, chuckling. He was attempting to irritate me, but I burst out laughing instead. "It would have been unnecessary for you to put anything in her drink if she had gone that far with you. Is it GHB or Rohypnol that would-be rapists are taking now?" It was a guess, but his shocked expression confirmed my suspicions. He flinched as I leaned across the table towards him, my fury barely contained. "You vile coward. This is the perfect moment for me to beat you, but I'd rather not go to prison for it." As I nipped my finger under his nose, I said, "I gave my wife 3 options now. I'm giving you 3 options as well. The first option is for you to leave immediately. Your resignation from your employment will be formalized tomorrow once you apologize to my wife. Then you're free to leave the city. I'll guarantee not to follow you if you do that. Second," I pointed to the ground again, "then you report your involvement in my wife's drink theft to the authorities. Do your time and avoid her at all costs. Then you're free to go from the city. I'll only keep an eye on you. I'm not going to pursue you. Thirdly, we enroll in a boxing class. After 6 weeks, we'll both enter the ring, sign injury waivers, and stay there until we both pass out. You must think I'm an idiot." The waiter delivered my whiskey just as I finished. I took a long drink, feeling the burn. "And when you wake up, you still leave my wife alone. Then you'll leave the city. Given these alternatives, why would I choose any of them?" "You don't want to spend your life looking over your shoulder," I said with a sinister smile in response to his sneer. "As you make your way to your vehicle in the dark, you won't stop to think about whether my buddies or I are waiting to stomp on your manhood and break your legs. You never know who could burst in the door when you answer it, my friends, or Ito tie you up and castrate you. You will always fear that I or one of my friends will put something in your drink and do something horrible to you whenever you visit a bar. Doubtful. You will not take that chance. Your wife said that after I had my way with her last night. But you're too cowardly to stand up to me," he said, his cheeks reddening again. I should have planned this better, I thought to myself, as I sipped my whiskey once more and turned on my phone's audio recorder, intending to catch our chat. The pervert in you intended to attack my wife by putting something in her drink. Would you be ready to risk a lifetime of pain if I don't follow through? This was all just to set the tone for when my friends showed up. Now it was time to reel him in. We were going to take our revenge on her tonight. I lost all control and tugged him towards me by the collar, using my left hand. The punch landed solidly, and I felt his nose crunch under my fist. He screamed, clutching his face, and threatened to call the cops. I dared him to do it while laughing in his face and telling him that I'd love it if the authorities listened to the tape of his confession and tested the wine. The police arrived within 10 minutes, apparently. 2 officers were having lunch nearby. They took my statement, collected the wine and glass for analysis, and while searching Jake, they discovered a packet of white powder. Jake then insisted on having a lawyer and would not continue speaking. The police took my phone as evidence after listening to a mangled recording that clearly showed him discussing plans to assault, as well as slipping something into a drink. Julie and I were not allowed to leave the station until after 6 in the morning. After giving our statements, one officer commended me for stopping an assault. By the end of the statement, Jake was in police custody, and we informed my parents of the situation using her phone. We exchanged looks as we drew into the garage and turned off the car. Julie unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned across the console to embrace me tightly. I allowed her to cry on my shoulder for a minute before gently shooing her away. "Julie, we still need to talk, but it's late, and we should get some rest." They understood and promised to take care of Mike. So we decided to take him to the zoo for the day. "After we go to work tomorrow, we'll spend the day working together.